everybody, and welcome back to the Law Unscripted. We talk about the law and the legal system, all the things you never knew,
never understood,
and no one ever told you. So that's what we do. I am Virginia Tehrani. I'm with Tehrani Law, LLC, because you never need a lawyer.
So you do.
And this is Chelsea Rogers. Chelsea, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chelsea, and I'm so happy to be joining Virginia here today. We have a fantastic topic.
Yeah, we do. We are going to talk about robbery. So stay tuned. If you want to hear about robbery, this is the one for you, okay? So we're going to take it very specifically. We're not talking about all of criminal law, everything someone could be charged with. We are just going to focus on robbery. What is robbery? How is it misunderstood? And I like this with our theme of, all the things you never knew and no one ever told you, because there's so many assumptions with robbery.
Yes.
That aren't necessarily true when it comes to the actual law.
I think about this all the time. There is basically every scenario. If someone took something from me, I'd be like, I've been robbed. I think that's colloquially how we say it, right? But
absolutely,
very few of those times would I have actually had been robbed legally.
Exactly. You've been thiefed. Which
I've been pickpocketed.
Probably not a word, right? You could potentially have been pickpocketed. Someone stole something from you. Maybe it's a burglary, but it's not necessarily a robbery.
And even if they sort of did the first part of robbery, if they didn't intend to keep it forever, then I also have not been robbed.
Right. They took your car for a joyride. Yeah. If they carjacked you, and really
Grand Theft
wanted
Auto, not the same.
It's not the same. If it was done by force and they really meant to take your car away, then that carjacking is technically a form of robbery.
Yes.
Because they have taken something of yours. They've committed a larceny and they've done it by force. They pull you out of the car. They tell you to get out of the car. They hold a gun to your head. That is robbery.
Yeah. They say, I'm going to pull my gun out of this pocket, even if they maybe don't have one. That's that intimidation factor.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's go through the elements. The funny thing for me for robbery is we keep thinking, oh, it's all by force. It's a gun. It's whatever. But fundamentally, like you're saying, if they meant to give it back, then you all fail on robbery, because the first thing you have to prove for robbery is that someone
permanently
stole
deprived,
something.
Right?
Yes. That they intended to permanently deprive you of something. This is basic larceny, right? So we go to, it's a taking and carrying away.
There's our actus reus, right? There we go.
Yes, the action of a taking. They're taking something away from you with the intent to permanently deprive. Yeah. So you have to have that in every robbery. Forget about the gun. Forget about the bank, all this other stuff. You have to start with the simple theft.
Yep.
Was
it intent, the mens rea, the guilty mind of intending to keep it permanently.
Exactly. So you have the act, the actual taking away of your property, and then you have the intent of they wanted to deprive you forever of it. Yeah. They wanted it to be theirs.
They could be like, yeah, I took it. Sure did. But I was going to bring it back.
Yeah, and if a jury believes that story, then they can, possibly, maybe there's another charge, or it's just you're not guilty because they believed you wanted to bring it back.
Yeah.
So we've got the theft first. So you have to actually steal something. Take something. If you just go and can't even say the word here, assault somebody, right? You get in a fight. That's not robbery because you weren't stealing something from them. It's violence.
Yes.
It's the violent part is you want to do something to harm them, but it's not the taking away of something. So it's a totally different.
Right. It's not the shoplifting where you're being sneaky and taking it. Right? Like you didn't rob Walmart. You were shoplifting from Walmart.
Exactly. That's such a great comparison. Yes, it's a crime of stealing.
Yes.
Right. It is a larceny-based crime. Robbery is a larceny-based crime. But depending on where and how you do it, it's different charges.
I think we talked about this in maybe one of our other videos, but robbery is interesting when you start talking about what can be, it had to be an evidence video. We're talking about what can be brought in as far as previous crimes. And technically, because like you said, it's a stealing crime, not a violent crime.
Right.
It has different rules that apply to it. But I think robbery is the one that really, if there's a Venn diagram, it is right there in the middle.
I agree, because for people who have never done law school, you need to understand that when we are in law school, they consider it a property crime.
Yeah.
They put robbery in the property crime circle, this Venn diagram,
versus
right?
like a personal victim-based crime.
Exactly. So the person crime versus the property crime. And you're right. Like there are these two little circles, and in the middle, the circle in the middle of it that you draw there is really half property and half personal.
Yes. I also love the argument. I had somebody say this in one of our evidence classes. They made the argument, which I thought was very smart, saying that robbery was not a crime of dishonesty because it was a crime of violence, which I thought was a very interesting argument, because in this scenario, you could only bring up the robbery conviction if it was about dishonesty or a truthfulness. And so they made the argument to the judge in class that this is not a crime of dishonesty. It's not a shoplifting. It's not a sneaking. It's not an embezzlement. It's a violent crime. And they won. I was so impressed.
I love it. And, in some states actually consider that too. So state laws are different from state to state. And there are some states that would do exactly that thing. They'd see like, no, it's not a crime of lying, cheating, or stealing.
You just blatantly took it and intimidated people. That's not lying. You were like, yep, I'm taking it.
Someone.
I'm taking it. Give it to me. You were real honest about what was happening.
Right. You murdered someone, but you weren't, that was just while you were trying to steal, but we're only going to count it for the murder. Ridiculous.
Exactly.
Ridiculous. Okay, so that's the larceny part. So what makes it the robbery versus just shoplifting or larceny, some kind of theft?
It's like the force or the threat of force is the intimidation. I think of the ones I think that are intimidation where they pretend they don't have a gun, or they bring a BB gun that's, nothing is not loaded, but it's that threat of violence. Even, the person who's being robbed, the cashier, the convenience store clerk doesn't know that gun's not loaded.
Exactly. If someone came up to me on the street and says, give me your purse or give me all your money.
Are you going to roll the dice?
Right. I'm not going to argue with them saying, why? Do you have a gun?
I might. I'm sorry. Just the principle of the matter would make me so angry. I would just rob them back. I've said this before, and I would just rob them back.
Yeah. Chelsea's going to die.
Yeah,
it's okay.
That's true.
We know how she's going to die. It's going to be through some kind of mugging and real robbery, or even a non-robbery.
Right. I have now escalated it to a robbery.
You have. Now they want to strangle you.
Right. Exactly.
That's the point. But so it's the intimidation. It's the fear. Yeah. I like this part is the intimidation is a victim-based requirement. Yeah. It's not whether they actually had a gun or did violence, but that the victim reasonably thought
was scared.
Yeah, they were at imminent threat of harm.
Yeah.
And if a reasonable person would truly believe, are you going to take that risk?
Not a reasonable person.
Chelsea, yes, but that's not a reasonable person. We're just going to say
and that is not legal advice. Don't do that, guys.
Yes, please, God. I'm an attorney. Chelsea just passed the bar, by the way. Congratulations. So freaking excited for you. You will now, after you were inducted or sworn in by the Supreme Court of Maryland, you will officially be an attorney. So this is not legal advice. Don't do what Chelsea does, because that's just ridiculous and is not what an attorney would tell you to do.
No, I don't think anybody would tell you to do that. I am just hard-headed, unfortunately.
Well, it's funny because I don't think you're the only one. My uncle got truly robbed a couple months ago, where somebody stopped he and his wife, my aunt and uncle, on the street and actually took their bags, right? Yeah. So it's a purse snatching is kind of how we look at it, but it technically can be a robbery.
Right.
And my uncle went after him. He ran after him.
Yes.
And he got the bag back. Now, he got injured in the meantime. Like he
fell. But he got it back.
But he got it back. This is not what you should normally do.
No.
You assume that there's I would never do it. I'd be like slinking away, hoping that nobody had a gun and they were going to shoot me since they're now gone.
I think I would be so mad. I would just be so mad about it. It's the principle of the matter.
It is. Okay, so now if it's the other part of it, this force or intimidation, and it's based on the belief of a victim, let's talk about the bank robberies.
Yes.
Right. We don't say the stealing from the bank. It's never phrased that way. It's the armed bank robbery. It's the bank robbery. It's always robbery, right?
Yeah, guys. So I think that invokes especially if you have a jury trial, right? Like that's going to invoke a certain imagery in the head of the jury. And it does.
Yes.
I mean, I've been to law school. You've been to law school. And even still, if you say robbery, like it has a different essence to it than if you're like, oh, they stole from the bank.
Right.
You're like, okay. Like,
absolutely. They didn't go in and ask to go into the vault and take all the money and walk out.
Right.
They came in with a gun and said, give me all your money.
Yeah.
And, any cashier, anybody in the bank, if someone comes in and says, give me all your money, it's the same thing like the victim on the street. Are you going to say, well, do you have a gun?
Right.
You're not going to check.
But also, for my criminals out there, who would rob a bank without a gun?
But there have been.
Yes, there's plenty of them. We were talking about this earlier. There's a guy who, this is more recent, has come in with a little note and just passed it over and said, I need all the money. I was telling Virginia about a story of been on a Wild West kick, a good old 1880s history kick. And there was a man who was dubbed the gentleman robber. And he never carried a weapon and he never was rude or intimidating or scary, but he would stop these I'm thinking Oregon Trail wagon situations, what they're called.
He would stop them. And the wagon trains.
Yes. Yes. And he would take all of their stuff, but he was so polite that he got dubbed the gentleman robber and had a nice long career of robbing people. And I was wondering, was he a larcenist? Was he actually a robber?
He was some form of thief.
Right.
Yes, it sounds like we've got the larceny elements.
Sure, he took it. He absolutely took it.
But did they give it because they just wanted to, or because they thought, again, this is the victim-based, that this gentleman robber, by passing a note or asking them for it, had some way to force them to? That they were intimidated for if they thought they were going to be physically harmed. They didn't have to second guess it.
And he doesn't have to make an overt threat.
Yeah.
Well,
and maybe he never said, I have a gun, I'm going to shoot you. He just walks up, passes the note, and there's an implication that if you're going to take all of our money, you're going to have a means to do so.
Right. Maybe that. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, though, because you're like, technically.
Yeah. Well, so here's another fun one. Let's talk about robbing a house. We call it burglary or robbery. What makes it burglary versus robbery in a house?
Isn't it if the victim is home or not?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was right, but then I got scared. But then when but we don't even call it burglary. Well, burglary is like when they're not home, robbery. But if it's in a house, we call it home invasion, which is an even scarier word.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You're not.
If someone was like, I survived a home invasion, you'd be like, oh my God. But they're like, props. I survived robbery. Also bad, but not quite as bad as home invasion.
Exactly. There's the image in our mind.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
There's a whole genre, as your favorite horror movie lover. There's a whole genre called home invasion horror. Oh. And it's all about the scary guy at your house because it is terrifying. It's my favorite type because it actually petrifies me and I think that's true. The movie industry has borne that out to be truth among a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying to think of your home as your safety net.
Yes.
Right? That is your safe place. And if someone is coming into your safe place, it's such a violation. Where else do you have to go?
Have you heard this? You've probably heard this. That it's like, I was taking this was an undergraduate criminal law, criminal justice type of class. And they were like, if someone breaks into your home while you were there and it's like a normal time of day for you to be there, they are not there for your stuff. And I think that's what makes it scary, because like people who are professional robbers or burglars, they go during the day when people aren't home because they're not interested in hurting people.
They don't want you in the home.
They don't want you in the home. They want to like go through all your stuff and get out. So I don't know. I heard that once and it was like the scariest thing I've ever heard in my life.
It is. Yeah. If they go through in the daytime, they're a thief. They're a burglar.
They just want your stuff.
Broken into your house, but they don't want to engage with you.
Exactly.
Now, this is another interesting point, though. If they have a gun, let's say they go in during the daytime, but they have a gun. They're just there to burglarize and steal your stuff from your home. Yeah. But the question is, well, if they had a means for violence,
don't they have the intent to commit violence?
Yes. So most courts, though, interpret that as still just a burglary because the victim wasn't there. The victim didn't know there was a gun or not a gun. It wasn't done in the presence of a victim.
I would agree. To me, that logically makes sense. But it's also what we've talked about in sort of another context is that like I wouldn't ever sell drugs without a gun. Oh, not even that I would go into a situation intending to harm somebody. But I also don't think I would become a burglar without a gun. I think it's just like it goes together and doesn't necessarily convey intent. I mean, I think that makes sense.
I think so too. Yeah. And what you're saying is, so if you go at night, you're going to presume that people are home.
People are
home. At night. They're in their beds or they're eating dinner. So you're right. That is like the home invasion, which is implicating a robbery because who's going to come in at night without a weapon?
Right.
Nobody?
Right. You might get lucky, if you come home and surprise somebody on your lunch break, that person might run out the door.
Right.
But the person who comes in at 9 p.m., they are coming in ready for a fight.
They're coming in with the masks and the automatic weapons and everything. Yeah, they're truly terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
I've now freaked myself.
For everyone in your home, please make sure you're protected. And if not, maybe you want to lock your doors, get an alarm, get some weapons legally.
Get some pet cameras to just monitor things.
Pet cameras are fantastic, fairly cheap, easy enough. But yeah, so that way you don't get robbed in your house. So you can still be robbed in your house. You can be burglarized or robbed. There's so many different types of larceny. This is only one type, and some courts don't consider it a larceny.
Which is wild.
Absolutely wild. Right. So that's robbery. That's it, folks. That is robbery in a nutshell. So if you ever wanted to know, that's what it is for law students. Hopefully it helped a little bit with the extra examples. Yeah. And for law students, we are creating a full supplemental bar review class, which can also go toward your law exams. So we've got the core 8 subjects: criminal law, criminal procedures, contract, that sort of thing. So check that out if you like our discussions, if you like how we talk and it makes sense to you, gives you a good conversational flow. We will have that for you coming up very soon, especially since Chelsea has passed the bar. Yay! Congrats from me and from the Law Unscripted. We love you. We have such a fun time. Everybody click that like button, click that subscribe button so that you can get this video out to other people who might enjoy it and learn something about the law that they didn't know and someone didn't tell them. I'm Virginia Tehrani.
And I'm Chelsea Rogers.
And we will catch you next time on the Law Unscripted.